Welcome everybody to The Art of Ideas with Sam Foote. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. It's been a long time coming, but we're finally doing the last session on this guy. I've been working on this guy for a few months, doing a repaint on it, and it's one of many paints we're working on this channel. And the next time you guys see this, after this session tonight, we will be doing a varnish session on it. We'll be showing you how to do a varnish. If you hear kids in the background, that's my niece and nephew. Anyhow, they're having fun. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this could be a really fun night, and I've already mixed up my first color here, all ready to rock and play. It probably won't be a real long session because I'm pretty sure there isn't much left to do on this guy. Now, we're going to work on this until we're pretty happy, which shouldn't take very long. We're going to sign it, work on it a little bit more, and we're going to let it sit for a couple days. And I can't promise you I won't pick on this thing off camera a little tiny bit, but I doubt it. I've had this guy sitting here for, I'm just taking this warmy kind of yellow color with a touch of blue in it to cool it down. That's not... There we go. That's cool. Nice little saturation on that guy. And that's all we're doing. We're just picking. And how do we know this is done? Because it isn't bugging me anymore. That's how I feel about it anyway. It's usually how I know if I'm getting close to the end of any project. You run out of stuff to fix, you know you're crossing the finishing line. So as I said, we're just going to do a little bit of picking here and there. My main goal right now with this color I have picked over here, and this is a new setup I've been working on for you guys, so you can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit. Plus, it just makes it a little easier for me to mix paint and not be down in front of you guys. I got the genius idea last night, but it just occurred to me. I had this, my field easel, one of my field easels sitting here in my closet, kind of in my way, so let's put her to good use. And we turned it into a big fancy palette. Now this is just a big piece of tempered glass, like a glass shelf. I think of an entertainment system that I've had for years. And this is one of probably 7 palettes that I have. If not more, I probably have more than 7. I have all kinds of fancy palettes, but this glass one's a favorite. I haven't used it a really long time. I've actually been using, I have it hung up over there. But on all the videos prior to this one, you guys have been seeing me use my Bob Ross palette, which I've had since, geez, I think I was 18 years old, and I'm 44 now, so take that for reference. Anywho, but yeah, I really like this. And then what I did, just to make my life a little easier, and this is what I traditionally do with this glass palette, is I put some acetate on it. Now, if you don't know what acetate is, it's basically plastic film. This is 5 mil. If you want to get a roll yourself, it's not very expensive. And I got a huge old roll of it. And I used to use this for airbrushing, and that's what it's traditionally used for. Now, you can use it for all kinds of things. Right now, I'm basically using it as a barrier between the glass and my paint, because I can, this stuff is very rigid. It's not like plastic wrap. It's actually pretty thick, pretty rigid, pretty slick, and it makes a really great surface to work on, to mix on. The glass is fantastic by itself, but this allows me to keep my glass really clean, and I can pull this off every couple months. I'll keep scraping on this. I don't like being wasteful, and I don't like throwing plastic away, but it does make our life a lot more convenient and easier to deal with sometimes. So I'm just going to go back to using this guy, and I've been wanting to put it to work for a while. And all I'm really doing with this painting today to finish it up is to add a couple little color pops. I felt that it just needed a little bit more warm color in all my core shadows. And yeah, also we're rocking the lapel mic today. I thought I hatched this thing when I got my wireless mics, but I apparently never even opened it. So we're trying that today and seeing how it sounds. Now, I have very little work to actually do on this guy. Like I said, we're just going around doing some little fun poppy things, maybe adding a few more bushes. If anything is really undone, I would have to say it would just be this little area right here and maybe this little area right here. So we're going to work in that area kind of a lot, and this area kind of a lot. And I just started right here, right before we went on camera, and I started warming up where this grass is going into the coarse shadow. I just felt it needed a little bit more spark on the edge here. As this grass recedes, it gets cooler and bluer, and as it comes towards the camera, it's becoming a little bit more saturated. And as you get into your coarse shadow, where it goes from light to shade, as this world is wrapping around, think of this as a long cylinder, and this is the coarse shadow side of this cylinder. So we're just adding a little bit more life to that as it's going into shadow. And yeah, I'm already liking it too, but I really am pretty happy with it for the most part. Now, I promised you guys that my next video would be one of my dark pieces, and I did do that session, but I recorded it in higher quality off of Wi-Fi. Right now we're broadcasting directly off of Wi-Fi, so if you lose a little bit of signal because of my Wi-Fi, and I have very good Wi-Fi, but Comcast, yes, I have Comcast, so it's not necessarily always the most reliable, and it's easier to blame somebody else, so we're going to blame Comcast for our breakups. Yeah. But yeah, it feels really good to get this guy done. I'm going to finish this guy. We're finishing right now. And then once I've given this guy a few days to dry, and I know a lot of oil painters will want to wait 6 months before they varnish, but that's pretty unnecessary with the varnish I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using not a non-traditional varnish. It's a modern varnish. And we'll get to that when we get to it. But just so you guys know, I've been using, I use a lot of different varnishes. I have probably $300 of varnish behind this painting right here. No joke. Because like most artists, I threw a lot of money away on testing things. It's easy to read a review. It's hard to see how it works until you put it to work. Now, I'm using Gamvar. Great stuff. This is kind of a poly varnish, but it's actually made for acrylic and oil painting. And it works wonderfully. I find this stuff a little bit on the too glossy side pure, so I cut it with thinner. And it works perfectly fine. Now, when we get to that point, I'm going to be doing 2 varnish layers. And I debated actually doing a pre-varnish layer on this before the session, because right now, because of how I'm working dry brush. My colors are actually a little bit on the weak side. They're being sunk into the canvas a little bit, and my colors look very dry. If I get on the side right here, it looks just as matte as you guys are seeing it from the foreground. There's very little sheen on this painting in any general area. There's a couple little shiny spots here and there where maybe I had a little bit more oil or medium in my oil paint. But that's okay. When we do the varnish layer, it's going to even this all up. It's going to reintroduce some life and some gloss to this, and it'll help suck out some of these kind of dulled out colors, especially in the darks. Our darks are going to get a little bit darker by probably 1 value level, and that's just going to make everything really pop, and I can't wait to see what that's going to look like. But as far as how we're working here, yeah, we're at the finishing line, and that feels really, really good when you've been cranking on something for a good long time. I just really love this composition when I did it, and I'm repeating myself, but I really thought this painting deserved some love. So. And we will be working on more of my dark art. Maybe that'll be tomorrow, because I'm sure I'll be streaming tomorrow. Now, I debated even streaming today. I just need to get back on the horse, so I decided to stream and finish this guy up. This had to happen anyway. But in the background, I haven't been here for a few days, and it's because I've been working on some exciting stuff. At least exciting to me. I'm working on some technical stuff. Business stuff for my art, and so I can show you guys online a little bit better what I do. I'm in the process right now of fully rebuilding my website, which is so old and so antique that it looks like a really bad MySpace page. Like some 13-year-old kid back in the MySpace page era, when that was the big deal, way before Facebook and everything else. MySpace was kind of one of the first real big social apps, as I recall. It was kind of the rage for a little bit there until something much, much better came along. But yeah, my website was looking a little dogged. I wasn't excited about my website. It was kind of like a business card. You make that one business card to have that business card, and you just keep reprinting the sucker. But it was time for a new face on that, and I am overjoyed and super excited to let you guys see it. And my new website, I promise to have a lot more interactability with, meaning we will have mailing lists, and I'm going to have a little newsletter I'm going to be putting out every month to keep you guys updated on my work and what's ending up on my store. This painting here is already spoken for. As far as I know, we'll see. The client's happy with the piece, and if not, it'll end up on my Etsy page. Which I'm more than sure they'll be happy with it. They were happy with it before I did all these improvements to it. But it can be a dangerous thing, messing with something somebody likes. But in my defense, I started picking on this painting. I was like weeks into working on it when this guy saw the old version of it and asked for it. And I'm like, great, that's wonderful, thank you. But just so you know, I've been messing with this thing a little bit, and they were cool with it. They were totally cool with it, and they're very patient. So, and this is a repeating client. This is a person who has more of my work. So, let's see how that goes. Yeah. Have a little light music playing in the background that hopefully won't get us copyright struck, as it's copyright free. We'll see what happens. I think I was starting to put some cool or warmer colors behind these warm trees, and that's bad. That would have flattened that area. Watch what you're doing. Watch what you're doing. Now we're under artificial light, and to me it's not bad at all. I have a very good variety of lighting going on in here. Mostly daylight lights. I've got warm and cool alternating lights, both in the sun, in natural light range. But I notice on camera that cameras tend to flatten colors out a lot, which is a bit of an issue since I'm a color whore. It's pretty much what I've become. When you guys see some of my darker works, you'll be really shocked at how gritty and dark some of them can be. In contrast to this lighter fare, which I love doing both, and I'll never stop doing both. They add contrast to life, and my work is really all about duality. It's about the human experience for good and bad. And some days you have good days, and some days you have bad days. And some days when you're having a bad day, you paint something dark, and vice versa. Now we put all these colors out here. I've got titanium white, lemon yellow, cad yellow, bright red, which is cadmium color. I've got some magenta, which is primary. This yellow, lemon yellow is primary. Got primary magenta, primary blue, which is cyan, and some ultramarine blue, which is kind of a warmer blue. I've already gotten all my phthalo blues into this, and I really like, for example, through here, this is all phthalo. I have some striations going through here, which you won't see. They're very subtle. I'll bring the camera up on that at the end of this session. We'll get a look at it. But I have some warmer blues interspersed with some of these cooler blues. This is all phthalo blues. Actually, more of a cerulean, which is just phthalo blue with white in it. And as my blues have been getting closer to the eye, they're getting a little warmer. So we're going more ultramarine. And I'm using that mainly to tone some of these lighter colors I'm putting in right now to adjust them. I'm not really getting into dark color today too much. I might here and there, not sure. I don't think so though. We're literally like within an hour of this thing being done. Now, once I get my signature on it and have my ego attached to it, I'll probably take a look at this thing in a day or so and just do that like last little 20 minutes. You know, maybe I'll see a little thing here or there that I want to do, but that's not anything that anybody would ever notice in a million years. It's only something that an artist does, you know, to satisfy their soul, to make. It's hard to speak and do this at the same time sometimes. To satiate the soul, really, just to make sure that you felt that you did your best. And there's no excuse for not doing your best on everything you always do, because it shows. Trust me, clients know, they can tell. Now, that doesn't mean that a quick little painting can't be a wonderful thing. And in fact, funny enough, it's those paintings that usually sell. Not because they're necessarily a different price level or anything, because I generally price all my paintings the same. I price by size. And we can go over that another time, but that I use a pretty common way of pricing my work. A methodology that most professional artists use, which is basically just a price per square inch. So that's what I do. I add the length plus the width and times what I charge per inch. And that usually comes up with the final figure. And the reason I do it that way is because it scales with the size of the paintings that I'm doing. We're just doing little kisses here and there. Just little warm little things to make things pop a little bit at the end. We have a little bit of bad music going in the background because it's free. It's just for when I'm concentrating. Just felt like it needed some bushes in that background. I have these warm bushes over here, no other indication of those things anywhere else in the painting, which is fine. You know, hey, maybe they just want to grow there. Throw a couple little indications of something like that in the background here. I'm trying not to add too much new to this. I'm really just trying to refine what I have, but this little kiss isn't going to hurt anything, and I just felt like it needed it. I just went in there with a little bit of my ultramarine blue to throw some shadows under these little bushes I just threw in. Probably gonna need a lot darker blue over here. Yep, perfect. You'll often see me just smudge it with my finger to clean up the edges. I don't particularly like hard edges everywhere. A few hard edges here and there to define things, sure, that's wonderful, but just not my style. Throw a little green in this tree, maybe warm this little guy up, maybe warm this little guy up. As these little trees are getting close to the camera, they're catching light. There we go. Just gives a little bit more depth. One of the things I've really been enjoying about filming for you guys is that it makes me a lot faster. I found really recently that the camera is like having a gun pointed at your back, and it just makes you move, which I actually really enjoy. Funny story, not funny, but a story. Long ago, 2013, I did this music festival called Fairy Worlds 2013 in Eugene, Oregon. And I was doing a booth with two other artist friends, and we had a big old booth. It was a double size, 10 by 20. And I took the back half, they had the front half, and they were leather workers. They did beautiful work, and they did very well. And I had a big art gallery in the back, and I did very well. And what I did to draw attention to our booth the entire time, because one thing I noticed with a lot of artists is that at art festivals or music festivals is that artists are pretty, not always, but artists are often pretty introverted people. So they're afraid to jump out and invite people in to look at their work. But you would be shocked. If you just stand in front, if you're doing an event, let's say you're doing an art fair, if you stand out front and just say hi to everybody who walks by, and then occasionally, you know, to the right person, feel them out and say, hey, would you like to come and check out my work at random? You would be shocked at how your sales will go through the roof. People are just out there for the stroll. They're just out there to enjoy the day and enjoy some art. And until you show somebody that you have something of value that they might like, they're never going to see it. A little agua. You have to be not afraid, or at least hide your fear. And when you see that that works, when you see that just being confident, inviting people into your little realm, good approach is, hey, do you want to see something really beautiful? How many people are going to say no to that? And you'd be surprised, like 90% of people don't say no. It's the power of suggestion. Just like every stroking you make in your painting is a power of suggestion. Well, it's easy to do with paint. You have to learn how to be able to do it with your words if you ever want to sell anything. And while your work should be able to sell itself, we all hope that. A little bit of charm doesn't hurt. Throw on that charm. Alrighty, take a step back and look at it really quick. Do a little refresh on my cool. Alrighty. You can't see it, I've shown it before, but I have my TV on a ceiling mount right next to this easel. It's literally within about 10 inches here. And so I can turn it around my room any way I want, and it's a pretty wonderful thing for reference, or if I want to sit here and watch Looney Tunes while I work. Which, funny enough, I've really been getting back into old cartoons. I've always had a pretty good sized collection of them, but I have a high appreciation for 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s animation. It was symbolic of a time when people really knew how to pull up their bootstraps and do the hard work manually. You watch an old Betty Boop, which, funny, I had never watched Betty Boop until real recently. I guess I had some pre-held misconceptions, I think, about what I thought it would be. And a couple weeks ago, I just found a horde of old Betty Boops, and I started watching Betty Boops. I'm like, hey, let's watch some Betty Boop. I've never watched this. Guess what? Instantly fell in love with it. I could not believe the quality of the animation, the quality of the humor. To be fair, it being from the 40s, there's a little bit of implied racism and sexism. That's to be expected from any entertainment from that era. Look at what happened with Gone with the Wind on HBO Max. People are very sensitive nowadays, and it's okay. I get it. I understand. I'm not trying to shoot that down. I understand why people feel the way they do. But I just hope we don't lose all of our old culture. We can't burn our history just because some people might be offended by it. In fact, that's the last thing you want to do. How can you have any contrast to life if you don't know how things used to be? And I'm all for acceptance and women, gay rights, and all of that. Everybody should have the right to live any way they want. But that goes against... there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think you should start burning your history books. All right. You should know how bad it used to be. And yeah, I'm just rambling. All right, got kind of this minty green. Might start throwing that in here and there. Just a little bit here and there. Ooh, that is nuclear bright. Oh, wow. Yeah, that made a beautiful blue. I'm gonna drop this guy in here. It's a little cadmium with my cyan. Just gives kind of a truer blue to everything. But yeah, man, I mean, seriously, 1930s, 40s cartoons are amazing. At the beginning of these Betty Boops, some of them have little historical factoids from the directors and drawers of the episodes. And apparently, the average episode had somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15,000 hand-drawn frames of animation. Can you believe that? That's a lot of work. And in a sense, I think we've lost something. From that era. Digital work makes everything a heck of a lot easier, sure, but you miss... I miss all the little weirdnesses. You'll see in those old cartoons, like, for example, Looney Tunes. They often had different animators, different backdrop artists on every episode, or on varying episodes, and you'll see it dramatically. I was just watching some Looney Tunes a little bit ago, and I was... marveling at the background, and oh man, I just blanked the name of the episode, but it was, they're all classic, but the episode where Bugs Bunny is racing the tortoise. And I was marveling at how different the backgrounds in that really are from any other of the episodes. They used a lot of little techniques for painting those backgrounds. You could tell sometimes they used watercolor, sometimes acrylic. But you can see the hand-drawn quality of it all. And that's just something I miss from digital stuff. New Looney Tunes, HBO ones aside, because I actually think the new HBO Max Looney Tunes are shockingly not bad. I don't know. They must be true Looney Tune fans, Merry Melody fans, because they really capture the spirit of the old ones. They don't show quite the hand-drawn quality of the old ones, because they're probably not. They're probably done on a computer. And you can tell the background art is just a little bit static and not quite as artsy, I guess you could say, fine artsy as some of the originals. And I'm not a big fan also of the new Elmer Fudd redesign, but as far as the humor, they make me laugh. The animation is pretty decent, and most importantly, they finally got the voices right. Because if you remember, I think it was the early aughts, they were making new Looney Tunes, and in my opinion, those things are trash. I really am not a fan. I can only watch one of those for about 3 minutes before I have to tune out. Because the voices were just never quite right in that show. It just sounded like somebody trying to sound like Bugs Bunny instead of it being Bugs Bunny. Whereas I would say the HBO Max ones are much, much, much better on the voices. And I kind of bring all this up because in a really weird way, if my work looks a little wacky, well, yeah, I'm a Looney Tune kid. I'm definitely a Merry Melody in real life. And so is my work. My work is a living Looney Tune. This could almost serve as a backdrop to a Looney Tune cartoon, which I love. I'm just instinctively going around and picking out. That's why I'm talking about Looney Tunes, because I'm working basically on instinct right now. I'm not trying to overthink this. I'm just trying to feel it out. And if I have anything that bugs me, I'm just trying to fix it. But there really isn't much that bugs me. I'm actually pretty happy with it. Yeah, and those warm colors are helping. I might throw a little bit more down into here, in this area actually. Maybe that's where I'll go next. Grab some more of this wonderful yellow I had here. Might have to kiss it up a bit. I just put a tiny amount of paint out today. Now, when we start doing finger paintings, you'll be seeing me put out a huge amount of paint. In fact, white is, it's how you get all your tints. So any artist knows you're probably going to be going through white more than anything else. And when I do finger painting, oh wow, yeah, I go through a lot of white. And I'm going to have to fix that soon because I have to re-up on my white. I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty on my tubes of white. I'm in what artists might call panic mode on supplies. On that's on my white, but it's easily accessible. I'm using Winsor & Newton titanium and lead white. I use lead white sparingly. I use it for certain things. Lead white's a wonderful paint to use. Or flake white, it may be called flake white, but basically what lead white is aluminum oxide powder mixed with linseed oil. Scary, very poisonous, and you probably want to keep it off your fingers. I like to eat this stuff. I have a little bit on my cereal for breakfast. But lead white is great because it has a translucent quality to it. It's a little bit bluer, not quite as true white as titanium. And because of its translucent quality, it's good for making tints when you're doing glazing. It just works a little bit better because you're not fighting the opacity of the titanium white by trying to make a tint and then glaze it onto something. So I find that really useful. I might actually just go in here with some almost pure white and throw some more highlights on these trees. Ooh, that's bright. I've already pretty much done that. I just see a couple areas where it's a little weak. I tried to keep those highlights to the core here, not all the way to the edge, if that makes any sense. Just try to pop a couple of these guys out a little bit better. There we go. It's a little bit better. I think I overdid it here. That's okay. Just go back and wonderful Q-tips. Pretty awesome painting tool. Yeah, so I'm done messing with the horses. Not going to be doing any more with the horses. I don't want to over render this piece. In fact, a lot of my newer work is getting a little looser. This paint probably got tighter than I would have liked it to. I actually started with finger painting in the sky. And when you see it in person, you can really see that. You can see all my fingerprints through all of this. These aren't big brush strokes, those are big fingerprints. And it's pretty thick through here. Probably hear it a little bit. Anyway, it's pretty washboardy. It's probably about at least 1/8 of an inch thick through here. And through here, yes, the grass gets warmer, but I also blew it out. I put a lot of white through here, so it made like the sun was sapping the color out of this area. Because generally, wherever the sun is making a highlight, the color will be weaker there. I'm actually just going down and lightening up this little mid-ground area. It's a little, it was a little too dark where it was coming into that trough between these two hills where they're coming in together. Like what I did with the tip of this mountain, I threw some red over it just so it didn't stand out so much, so it just kind of blended in with the sky, and then it kind of gets pulling out as it comes down towards the horizon. It's a subtle effect. Not that the painting's very subtle. But even if my paintings are loud, there's a lot of subtlety in them. Now, a lot of work. Just adding a little life to that area. It was getting a little too desaturated. All right, so we're going back into that yellow, making that warm again because we are going to continue. There we go. It's pretty good. And then just a touch of this blue in there. See if that did the trick. It's not bad. I'm trying to be careful about lightening up some of these highlights in this, because this is kind of shadowed from these bushes, so I don't want to get too close to them. Oh yeah, it's a lot warmer. Okay. Always thinking in terms of cool and warm, cool and warm. Push and pull, cool and warm. Making everything flow. All right, I think I'll get rid of that color off my brush. Maybe we'll come in through here and warm up the coarse shadow between the light and the dark of where the sun is hitting this. It's funny. You wouldn't really necessarily be seeing the, well, no, you would. You would. Just I was arguing against my own argument here. I was gonna say you probably wouldn't see the clouds being lit up the way they are, because this is really like one horizon, then the opposite horizon. Bet you would. I was just thinking you wouldn't be seeing the light on the underside of the cloud, but and then I corrected myself. I already thought through this. Oh, there we go. It's kind of a nice little warm color. Just trying to give a little life to it. Got a little grayed out here because I have yellow and purple coming together, and I think when I blended this, it grayed it a little bit on the edge. That's not what you want. You want to have high saturation in your core, in the turn where you're going from light to core shadow. You're definitely going to want your strongest saturation in your entire image in those areas, or for whatever object you're painting. There we go. Should have mixed up more of that. Let's do that. This is nice. I really like having the palette upright like this. I don't think I've ever worked vertically with my palette before. This is a new one on me, but I enjoy it. It's the first time I've ever painted this way. Just throwing a little warm light in this background tree is just a touch. Oh yeah, made that sing a little better. Going back to our core shadows, I always get distracted. Good old artist brain for you. Getting distracted, chasing cars. Part of the reason I'm using my fingers to do my blending at this point is because here and there I have a lot of heavier, thick paint that's already dried, and this is a little difficult to get a brush in between all those little ridges of paint. Sometimes easier just to muscle it in with your fingers. Now, if you don't want cancer, you probably don't want to do this. I made my peace with the fact that I may regret this one day, a long time ago. All right. What I'm doing here is probably going to seal the deal on most of the foreground. And then we're just going to go into this midground and mess around with these trees. I already did start doing that over here, and I'm pretty happy with it. So we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. Here in a minute. Be there in a second. Just trying to get some warmth in that turn, as I like to call it. I like to call it the turn. It's just easier for me to think about that way. It's a little better. I think I need to warm it up a little bit more. That'll do the trick. Oh yeah. And I put just a touch of white in it to give it a little bit more opacity. It's a good trick, using white to help cover areas. Like putting a little bit of white in your paint if you can get away with it. If you really want to cover something, because white's one of your most opaque colors usually, unless you're using lead or flake white. Depending on your brand, it'll be called something else. In fact, it's flake white in Winsor & Newton. Just wanted to look at that. Alrighty. Do the smoosh, smooshy smoosh. Get those colors rocking. Yeah, that warmed up that edge pretty nicely. Not bad, not bad. It looks okay. Standing a few feet back, it looks pretty good. I want to throw a little bit warm into these. I put these little bushes over here, but they look really kind of greenish. I just want to add a little bit of warm color to their shadow side so it helps make them look more consistent with these guys. Start a little kiss, a little tappy tap here and there, just to give it some implied repetition of color. Something I say a lot, repetition of color is really important, I think. There we go. Now that just implies something. Your eye will mix that and sell the believability of it. Not that anything in this world's realistic, but hopefully in our little world it's believable. There's a big difference between realistic and believability. All right. A Looney Tune has believability. You know, it's a living world where you can get lost in and you buy it, you know. All right, got this crazy cool color. Start picking around in here a little bit. I'm really just trying to, because I know this is my last session, I'm just trying to throw touches of variation in some of these areas where I think they're a little blah. And just dancing the brush around a little bit here and there. Try and get out of your way. Just to imply detail and to imply the gradual drop off in saturation. And I think I want to throw some highlights in these rocks. It's been bugging me. So we already did that. We're good there. Let's grab this little light yellow tone. It's kind of like a Hansa yellow, which is just a real light, warm yellow. And it's kissy, kiss, kiss, kiss. Touch, touch. Just breathe on it. Oh, barely any is going on. It's awesome. There's like a little loss and blah there. Just throwing a tiny, tiny. I'm going to kick him back actually a little. Pull him back just a touch. Just by smooshing him with my finger just a little tiny itty bitty bit. Because these rocks were looking a little bit like bushes without their highlights on them. Let's go through and do last little bit on these guys. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Maybe a little bit on that bush. All right. Some of the stuff I do, I swear you wouldn't even see unless you were standing right next to me as I do it. There's such subtle little things. And this can be why sometimes a painting can get dingy and overworked, to be honest, you know, because you keep doing all these little things, and the more variation you start throwing into stuff sometimes, if you're not really careful, it'll mix in your eye and make gray. So when you're starting to feel like you're overworking something, it's usually because you feel like you're mixing mud. And the mud factor isn't because the color is dirty. It's because you probably have too much color down. You probably have too many color variations going on at once. And I have a huge problem with that in my work, because I'm trying to ram as much color into the viewer's eye as possible, and walking that fine line of overdoing it. It's a real fine line, and I already got to that point several times with this painting, which is why we're doing this repaint in the first place, where I just threw too much into it, and it started looking really overworked and kind of dingy. I wanted a happy, fun, pastel, and heavily saturated color, little wonderland, or Candyland in this case, because I really feel like this little world really reminds me of Candyland. I just wanted a little light yellow. I want to lighten up some of what's going on over here. Now this is supposed to be a cloud. It's a little on the weird side, a little oversaturated, but that's okay. I somewhat rescued it. It used to look like this was a tree trunk and this was a tree, and you may still be reading it that way, but no, it's okay. And if it is still that to you, then fine. It's a giant tree in the background. Accept it. It's fine. I don't care. If it's pretty, it doesn't matter. So what'll be far more entertaining is when we start doing some, I have it planned. I have several pieces on masonite in this corner over here, and they're all abandoned paintings. I don't think I'll ever work on them again. But they're pretty smooth. They're all done in umber. And they were underpaintings for some really complicated ideas I had. And they weren't bad ideas. It's just, I haven't worked on those for years. And right now I'm just seeing them as free real estate. So I'm gonna be pulling those out of the closet in the next couple days. And we're gonna take one, we're gonna find out which one of those suckers is gonna die first. And we're going to finger paint and brush paint and rag paint and whatever. We're gonna have a lot of fun on that. There's no reason. I have 2 huge rolls of canvas, and I could be making new canvases. And to be honest, starting a painting on white's my favorite thing in the universe, but I also don't like wasting my resources. So I'm going to probably pull those guys out and repaint them, because why not? Or paint over them, rather. I'm not going to even try and rescue those. I was looking at them a couple months ago, and I actually thought about actually trying to rescue one of them because it's pretty cool. Actually, I really like it. But no, I just don't have the energy to want to go back and do what I had intended to it. And it's funny, one of the dark paintings I was going to bring out for you guys over this weekend was going to be the piece that I was going to do my first dark session on with you guys, you know, show you one of my kind of creepy dark paintings. But when I took it out of the closet, I really didn't like it. And I put it in the closet because I was frustrated with it. I had gotten to a certain point with that painting where I was really, really happy with it, kept working it, overworked it. And in fact, I'll tell you what I did. I got too stiff with it. I started doing heavy rendering on a certain character in this piece. And I just got all obsessed with rendering this character instead of developing the rest of the painting evenly like I tend to do. And it just got way too stiff. So I looked at that character, which was the bulk of the main part of the painting. It was like 3/4 of the painting was this character. And I hated it. I stared at it for about 12 hours straight the other day, thinking about destroying it with paint. I wasn't going to burn it or anything. And so it's funny. I woke up fairly early, whatever that is to me, like 9-ish. Stared at that painting all day, frustrated, thinking about working on it for you guys. That was my intent. Didn't really do anything painting-wise. I did some other stuff. And was still up at around 6 or 7 the next morning, still staring at the fucker when I was like, I can't handle this anymore. And it turned into an 18-hour painting session with a nap. So I got a couple hours into this, and then I took a little short couple-hour nap and then worked on it again all that day and night and early morning until the next day. And just did one huge massive session, which I filmed little tiny bits of for you guys. So I did that off stream. It'll be higher quality. I just have to resolve some stuff with my editing software. That's why I've been doing edited videos for you guys. And I will be doing them, just not that often. I'd much rather just have fun and perform for you guys and have fun painting than sitting around for hours nitpicking where I'm going to make a cut in a video because I said something I didn't mean to or didn't say something correctly. I'm an artist. I don't care. I'm pretty accepting of who I am at this point. While I'm always trying to get better at my craft and become a better person and a better communicator, I'm also pretty just comfortable with the fact that I have flaws, and I'm not trying to make some shiny, perfect painting, and I'm not trying to be a perfect, shiny painter for you guys. I'm very human. Aren't we all? So it's okay. We're going to be on camera most of the time live, and whatever F-ups I have, you guys are going to get to see, and you might even get a little curse word here and there every once in a while when I run into little issues. Cover your ears. All right, that's way too saturated. Let's try that. Much better. I'm just doing all my final little poppy things. We have kind of a bokeh background going here, meaning it's pretty out of focus and blurry in a lot of areas, and yet there's still a lot of detail in it, but I don't feel like I have to torture myself with making everything look perfect in the background. And it might seem strange that I'm working into the background right now, so far into a painting, but I just work that way. I work the whole painting all the time. Like, I mean, of course, when you start a painting, you have to put paint somewhere first. So I usually will put it in the sky first. That's just logical, but not always. Sometimes I'll put in the character. The character is a predominant force in the piece. If I'm doing a really character heavy piece, then yeah, I'll start with the character sometimes and paint the background around it. Which, hey, I can grab a piece off my wall that is a perfect example of me painting the character and then painting the background around it. Give me half a second. Now, this paint got a little messed up. It was in an art show and somebody scratched it, so I have to do some repainting on it. You can see a big scratch through here, big scratch through here, big scratch through here. And so yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and work that. And this is an acrylic painting, and so I started to actually put some oil paint into this to kind of clear up some of the scratches that somebody put into this piece. That's sometimes what happens when you put out art in public places. I had this thing in a bar, I believe it was, and I think that's, you know, bars. It's a good way to get your work messed up. Drunk people stumbling into your stuff. Anyway, I like this character still. I did this a while ago. This was from 2017. Just a fun little piece I was actually working on at my job. I used to work at a tattoo studio, so I'd be doing little stuff like this in between other things I'd be doing just to keep myself entertained. But I have all kinds of little paintings like this. I have a whole cat series, actually. And dogs. I love doing dog paintings as well. Actually, I like dogs a lot more than cats, so I prefer to do dogs. But crazy cat people like to buy cat stuff, trust me. No offense to you crazy cat people. I've had a lot of cats. So, you know, I get the appeal. Alrighty. Just trying to think of what to do next. Maybe take a step back and have a think. I know exactly what I probably need to do. I probably well, I actually already did. Start to throw in some detail in there. Anywho, take a sip of water and one puff off of my e-cigarette, which I bought the last of my oil for, hopefully. Where is it? It's over here somewhere. Oh yeah. I'll just go on Liquid Barn. If you guys are into vaping and you use a mod, not a Juul, but like a mod, and I'm not trying to do advertising here. I just go on Liquid Barn and buy either all the raw components and mix it all myself, or if they have it in stock, sometimes I'll buy base, which is just This already has a nicotine in it and everything. It's all good to go. I didn't do flavorant this time because this is the last of this oil I'm going to be buying. I'm really trying to give this thing up. I am sick of this thing. It is half the reason I sound so hoarse when I'm on camera. It's half the time you hear me coughing or clearing my throat. It's because this thing wrecks my freaking lungs worse than cigarettes ever did. But it was a worthy trade. I know it sounds contradictory, but honestly, I don't like the smell of cigarettes anymore, so at least I smell better. Oh yeah, that needed that. Just these little itty bitty touches are wonderful little things. And I'm always playing cool against warm and warm against cool. Exactly what I was just doing there. You barely see anything. I've got these little brushes and you guys are like 5 feet away. I just don't like zooming the camera in because, as you can see, I don't stay in any particular spot for very long at all. I never do. That's pretty rare for me. Unless I'm doing some really highly technical detail on one of my dark pieces in a certain area, then yeah, I might be there for a couple hours and maybe a small area. If you go to my website, actually, and it's a terrible website, which is, as I alluded to earlier, going to be replaced very soon, and look for a painting called Malice. That painting is ridiculously detailed. I don't know how much of it you can see on your computer at home, but the foreground, the background, where the characters are standing, and it's a woman and a man embracing, crossing, and they're standing on the landscape, and the landscape is made up out of bricks, individual bricks. That's what the whole landscape is rolling hills made out of bricks. And I literally drew every brick in the landscape individually with an airbrush, freehand. It took me a long time. In fact, that painting took me 3.5 years from start to finish, maybe longer. And while that might sound crazy, it was one of the first paintings. I have paintings that have been going way longer than that. And sometimes I'll bust a painting out in a few hours. It just depends on what I'm doing. But more than not, I tend to spend a fair amount of time with my work. All right. I'm a perfectionist and quite OCD. It's a blessing and a curse. Ooh, that's a really beautiful purple. Oh yeah, that's nice. Get a little depth to this. It's funny, sometimes when I'm throwing in a heavily saturated color, it'll actually disappear on me within a day, like an acrylic painting. Because acrylic paints, I don't know, I like painting in acrylic, but to me, I feel like acrylics desaturate as they dry. You know, they get lighter or darker, depending. And oil will only do that if you get sink in, meaning the oil is being sucked out of your paint into your ground, into whatever you're painting on. So that's why you pre-varnish every once in a while on a painting, especially if you're doing a lot of sessions and working dry brushes. I am here. I don't think I've done any wet and wet on this painting. I could be wrong. Sometimes, in fact, very often, the first session of a painting will be wet and wet, meaning that I'll put down linseed oil on the virgin canvas so it's like an ice skating rink. And it allows your paint to slide around pretty nice. And that's a really good way of starting a session if you're starting a new piece, if you're just trying to do blocking. Sometimes. I don't always do it, but I do it sometimes. It's like 50-50. Depends on the piece. probably frustrating to any viewers that you can't see every little thing I'm doing, but we're really just picking at little details here at the end. I was actually really happy with this after a few days of not seeing it and massacring one of my dark paintings, which it's funny. I'll tell you the story. But anyway, to finish that, I really liked it. You know, that's always a good sign. That's a good way to know if something's pretty close to done. If you think you pull it out of the closet after not staring at it for a while and you're happy with it, then yeah, that's a beautiful thing. But that dark piece, it's funny, I wanted to do it on camera. And after I looked at it and was torturing myself with it, I guess I just didn't feel the confidence to show you guys that piece on camera. Which was a mistake, because as soon as I let the beast out and just started going crazy on it, it was pretty wonderful. But when I do get around to editing that video, and it may be a couple months from now, I don't know when I'll do it, I'll show you guys that session. Little bits of it anyway. I actually forgot to record most of it here and there. Like, I started realizing after I started to wreck the original piece, started painting over it, and radically changing it, that I should be recording this. I'm like, hey, this is great. I'm loving everything I'm doing. I should record this. So I did get the camera in there here and there for y'all. And I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to start hustling on doing more in here. And then I think that'll be just about it. Yeah, I really, as I said, I just wanted to touch up a couple little things that I thought could use a little bit more love, and then here in a few minutes, in fact, we'll do it here in a minute. I won't forget. I'll try not to forget, but we'll sign the sucker. That's usually how... That's a really important part of the process of me finishing a painting, is putting my ego to it. As soon as I get my name on that canvas, I start seeing all kinds of stuff that I might want to do. Not always, but fair amount of the time. So I'll probably do that and then take a, you know, put it in the closet for a few more days, take another look at it. Probably won't do any more recording if I do have any picking to do at it. And then we'll let it dry. And we'll do a varnish video. We'll show you how we varnish a painting, or how I varnish a painting. Everybody has their own way. I've always found varnishing paintings to be the most frustrating part of painting, honestly, because sometimes it goes really, really, really well, or it can go horribly. And that isn't good when it's the last thing you're doing to a painting. I mean, you did all the work, and then you're putting something over it to seal it. Well, how hard can that be? Well, it's a little bit trickier with oil paint than you might think, because varnish for oil paintings dries extremely fast. Like, it's drying on you as you're putting it on, and the stuff is sticky, and you can start getting brush strokes from the varnish in the varnish, and whatever brush you're using for your varnish is probably going to die. It doesn't matter how, it just never seems to me, no matter how much work you put into trying to clean that varnish brush, which the last one I bought was like a $14 varnish brush. I killed it in 5 seconds. I literally varnished one painting with it, and that brush was toast. I tried my hardest, my darndest to get that sucker clean, as I always do with all my varnish brushes, and it just doesn't work. Varnish is basically drying on your bristles as you're applying the stuff to your painting, so it just never seems to come out of your bristles. So what I tend to do is with this Gamblin stuff, the Gambar, I use a rag. Screw-ruining brushes, rag works fine. And it works actually rather well. Especially since, because I thin this varnish out so much with thinner, it makes it much easier to work with. I will warn you that this Gambar straight, test it on something. Don't just throw it on a painting you care about if you've never used it before. The stuff is extremely glossy. Like, we're talking crazy glossy. It looks exactly like, almost exactly like if you do, and I've done this on some of my work, but if you do an acrylic pour over a painting, which I've done with some pour acrylic paintings I've done, I'll take a epoxy resin and literally make a swimming pool of epoxy resin over the painting. It has a really cool look to it. It's a really neat effect. But that's kind of what it looks like. That's what that Gambar almost looks like once you do it. And if you're into that super high gloss look, then you rock that. My argument against doing that is it makes a painting almost impossible to see from any angle except for direct on in any lighting condition. Whatever angle you can get a good look at it from, yeah, it looks really cool being all glossy, but it makes it really hard to see. So I tend to go more satin with my final varnishes. In fact, this one will be very satin because there's a lot of impasto. And when you have heavy, thick brush strokes, any gloss that you have on these, when it goes to the photographer, which I have a professional photographer I use for my work, will catch the light that they're using, the studio lights. I've got all kinds of studio lights in here. So it'll catch all the studio light and it'll make, in the CCD of the digital camera that's doing the photograph, it'll make a bloom. It'll make this little halo-y, bright glowy spot on the master image, which is probably going to result in you cursing a lot and spending a lot of time in Photoshop with the clone tool, because heaven knows I've done that enough, you know, go in and spend several hours after you paid somebody to photograph it for you, cleaning up your own work, your own photograph, because you basically made it too glossy when you sent it to them. And that's not the photographer's fault. That's your fault. That's something you have to figure out with your own art. It's beautiful to have it glossy. And in fact, if the painting looks pretty good and you don't have a lot of sink-in issues, if you don't need that heavy varnish on it to pull out your darks, then don't. Send it to your photographer, have them shoot it for you. And then varnish it. A little delay for effect there. Switching hands. Do a little left-handed painting. I'm not as good with my left as my right, but I'm getting better at it. It's a good skill set to have. Be able to use both of your hands. I'm actually getting pretty darn good with my left hand, painting-wise. I might not look as natural at it, but I'm actually not too bad. I'm pretty accurate with it. Just going into these purples and actually throwing a little bit much more saturated Magneta in here and there. And that is one thing. Another thing, I use a lot of reds, a lot of Magneta in my painting, and depending on what medium, the effect is worse, but Magneta in almost any medium is basically fugitive. If you don't know what fugitive color is, it just means that it's not light fast. That's a problem with a lot of warm colors in paintings. And you'll see it in a lot of like Renaissance art and Dutch art, that, you know, the reds will be missing. It actually gives them a nice effect, but the reds in a lot of Rembrandt paintings are toast. Just watched a documentary on that once. They're talking about, matter of factly, how a lot of the reds and stuff in some of the paintings, unless they've been restored, when they restore paintings, they fix that, but they try to correct for that when they're restoring old artworks. But so flesh tones might look a little weird or off in older paintings sometimes if they used a lot of reds. There's other fugitive colors as well. Yellow can be fugitive, especially in watercolor. Yellow can be really fugitive. Well, I'm really glad I motivated myself to do this for you today. I was spending all day working on my website, trying to get it up. All I have left to do on my website is a little tune-up and do all my text, which I'm writing longhand. I'll type it up, and I'll be honest, I am not the best with grammar. I'm well-read, but that does not mean that I consider myself well-read. I'm a reader, but I am awful at grammar, terrible at it. So I'll probably have some folk proofread some of my stuff, and then I'll post that guy for you. I already have a website up, so I have this little technical. Actually, I already tried to post it last night, but I ran into an issue because I already have a site up that I have to get rid of before I can post the new one. So I think I'm going to have to contact my provider. One thing I'm really proud of is that I got motivated way back in the early aughts to reserve my domain. I almost got samfoot.com. That's just short for Samuel, of course. But I ended up having to get samuelfoot.com, which I'm lucky to have gotten that, because there's a lot of famous Sam Foots in the world. There's at least 3 in the last century that were fairly famous. There was an actor, a playwright, and a famous doctor, all named Samuel Foote. And I hope he catches this someday, but there's another Samuel Foote who lives in Australia who contacted me one time. He was on the internet, and he was searching his name for whatever reason. And my website was one of the first things that popped up. And he was checking out the art, and he got a hold of me. He said, we actually ended up being pen pals for a couple months. It was pretty fun. But he was like, you know, I was searching my name, and I didn't even realize I was a really great artist and had all, well, I didn't say that, he said that, that I was a great artist and had all this crazy art on the web. I thought that was kind of funny. He said he was showing his friends all of his art that he had been doing that they didn't know about. He was joking, of course. I thought it was hilarious. But if you're out there, Sam, how you doing, mate? I hope you're doing well, man. You should check out my website again here pretty soon, and it'll be a whole new fresh beast. Very contemporary, very modern art, very cool looking. I'm super proud of it. Time to chuck that old MySpace looking sucker in the heap. You have to be careful with reds as they go into your background. You really want to desaturate your warmer colors. Otherwise, it'll just draw that background forward too much. So I just went in there with a really light pastel-y pink. I'm going to do the same thing over here for repetition because this is all the same world. It would look really weird if I didn't put that pink over here to imply some of these purple bushes that I have in here. I have indicators of them in through here and in here, but I have them in this back far area. So I'm just tapping in little pink, little roundy bits, and just to sell the illusion. And those little pinks will help all these little greens actually look greener. Even though they're very desaturated and in the background, it'll help give them a little life. Just by putting that little light pinky tone next to them. All the little tricks you learn in life when you do something obsessively. That's my game. I study art constantly. And I have a very healthy art book collection because back in the day when I was growing up, that's all we had. We didn't have the internet. So I continue to, when I can afford it, add to my art book collection. I have all kinds of stuff. All kinds of Dali books. In fact, I have one Dali book that's probably worth a fortune. The price on the jacket, even when it was sold at the time, was like $275 new, and this book has got to be from the 70s. So it's enormous. It's huge. It's literally, it's like that thick. I'm not kidding. It's one of the two biggest books I have. I have another book from that period I found. That's also very old. In fact, most of the pages are black and white, which is unfortunate. There's only a few color pictures in it. So it must have been like right around the time when they went to color printing. But it's a Van Gogh book, equally big and huge. And also, I have something that a lot of artists, if there are any more seasoned artists out there who might appreciate this, I have a whole bunch of original OG Andrew Loomis books. Yeah, those are worth a lot. Those can be worth as much as several $100s a piece. And I just had a friend of mine give those to me back in the day. He was a thrift store shopper. He was an older gentleman. He had a huge collection of books. He just collected books. And he became fond of me. We worked together at a job. We became friends. And he's like, man, I have all these old art books. Do you want them? He's like, I don't ever look at them. I've been collecting books for years. Do you want my old paperback? They're all paperback, magazine style art books. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So he brings me all these old books and I'm like, wow, these are really neat. But at the time, I was pretty young. I think I was 18 at the time. I didn't actually know what they were until a couple years later. And then I found out. I just looked it up and turns out that Andrew Loomis books, even at that time, were worth a fortune and very, very, very highly sought after. Unfortunately, I had a few of them stolen from me at a party one time. I noticed I had a huge, I still have a fair amount of them, but somebody at a party grabbed a handful of them and ran. So, yeah, it's a damn shame. That's the price of having fun. We all have to pay for our fun, huh? Fun always has its price, I like to say. Always. No matter what fun that is, you're going to be paying for it later somehow. All right, now let's start working on these trees a little bit more. They're kind of, I don't mind the fact that they're just kind of laid in here. You know, I'm fine with that. I just actually want to maybe throw a couple more in the foreground. But before I do that, I'm going to highlight these guys a little bit more. Most of them look fine. I actually, since we've been talking, I don't know if you even noticed, but I actually did already highlight quite a bit here. I'm just working fast, so you might not notice all the little things I'm doing. That's why I'm loving the camera on my back. It really puts a fire into my butt to keep moving. Whereas when I'm working off camera, I tend to consider what I'm doing a lot more, and that honestly isn't necessarily always a good thing. Overthinking stuff too much can really F you up sometimes. Follow your instincts. Your eyes will know, your instinct will know if something looks right or wrong. Everybody sees reality every day. And even though we're not really painting reality, we're trying to create believability in our little made-up world here. So, oh yeah, that's adding a lot of depth. Whole lot. I don't know if I'm going to add any middle ground trees here. There's no real reason to. I just kind of felt like maybe I want to pull this forward more, but I do have a couple bigger ones in here. You can see this little guy here helps kind of bring everything forward. The only thing I really need to do with that guy, and let me grab a liner really quick, is actually draw the trunk down a little bit further, because right now it looks like he's part of the background too much. I'm just going to use a little thinner. I don't want to use a medium right now. There's no real reason to bring medium into this right when I just need enough thin paint to just make a tree trunk. We're not going to mix medium. I'm just going to get a little lazy and use what we got. Oh, that looks way better anyway. Heck yeah. Oh, that looks way better. Okay, cool. Well, that makes me happy. I'm trying to act surprised. Actually, you get to a certain level with your experience where you're pretty sure things are going to work out pretty well. That's what getting confident is all about. It's just practice. Knowing what works, what doesn't work. It's really just a matter of study. Watch all the videos you can. There are so many great videos out there of people on YouTube just showing you the ropes. I watch them too, constantly. Every once in a while I'll pick up something I didn't know, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Nobody knows everything. I see new tricks every day. I was looking at a YouTube artist earlier, I won't say the name, but they had a neat little trick with binder clips, because I use the heck out of these guys. But they had one that I had never seen before that I thought was pretty clever, which is putting them on the end of your tubes right here. So you can, I'll show you. I thought that was a super clever trick. And then you can hang them. Super smart. Don't know why that didn't occur to me, because I usually just keep them on a shelf and that works fine for me. But when I have more space, I'll pegboard them. It's a brilliant idea. But for the future, when I get a little bit more room to paint in, ironically, when we moved into this house, my room shrunk by half. My old studio area used to be much, much bigger, but it was a worthy trade. I just use my space efficiently. I'm not like bitter about it or anything. It's fine. But we moved into a much better neighborhood, much better house. More rooms, just a bit smaller. And much happier now, much happier being here. So I'm not complaining. It's nice to own your own home. If you're fortunate enough to be able to do that. It's adding a little bit of three-dimensionality to certain elements I think are looking a little flat. And plus I think these are, in certain areas, it's just a little too saturated where the light's hitting. So I'm just adding this light pink in here. Just remember, wherever you have highlights, you really don't want like a huge amount of saturation. And just these little itty bitty shifts really help sell it. And that's why it can take so long to do a little painting. It was a mid-sized painting for me, but my point was simply that when you have so many little elements going on and you're really trying to not sell any of them short, you're trying to make them all look good, and that can add up to a lot of little tweaking and refining on your subject. That's why it can take so long sometimes to get something done. But it depends what you're painting and how you're painting it. And I have been, in the last few months, I have gotten so much faster. This painting is a monkey on my back, and it's a beautiful monkey, and I'm really excited right now to get it off my back, because this is pretty much the end of this sucker. Then I just have a few more that I really care about finishing, and we'll be finishing those, and then it's going to be, and we will be starting new paintings. I already did, recording that one as well. But when we start getting into real new stuff, that's when this channel is really going to be fun to watch. Because the start of a painting is much more exciting. And I want to reduce the number of sessions that I've been putting into my paintings. This painting, I have no idea. Probably like 50, 100 sessions. I have no idea. It's a huge range, but I mean, there's been a lot. And it's been way too many. But it's okay. It's as long as everything works out in the end, it's all well worth doing. Now, I said I wasn't going to forget, and I almost forgot. Let's sign this guy really quick. I'm really just dinking around at this point. Actually, you know what? Let's sign it and then we'll do it. Because we're going to attach our name to this sucker, and then we're going to use that to power us through the last of it. But we're coming up towards the end of what we're going to be recording tonight. I may pick at this a little bit more off camera. Then we're going to put it away, like I said, for a few days. And then we're going to glaze this sucker. We're going to varnish it. It'll be official. And it'll just be another one for the books. All right. What was I going to do? Sign. I need a proper liner. Now, I sign paintings differently depending on the painting. Sometimes I'll have the signature actually flow with the painting. I actually think that's a lot of fun. And sometimes I'll actually try and hide the signature a little bit. But I don't really want to... Before I had the signature here, when I had this painting finished before, and that got painted over. It had to. So now we have to find a new place to sign it and a new color. So I'm going to pick a color. I think I might put the signature just in the corner here in the sky. There isn't a lot going on here. We won't make it super huge. Maybe make it a few inches across. I don't want to jump out at you. I don't want my ego to be like, oh, this guy had a huge ego. He put his signature bigger than the painting, which that would be a cute trick. I want to see somebody do that, sign their name bigger than their own painting. But I also don't want people hunting around for it, in a rush if they're just trying to find out who the artist was who did it. So there's a little happy balance. I'm trying to figure out, I think I'm going to do it in this blue right here. Actually, maybe not. I don't know. See, you have to take into account framing. So if somebody had a custom frame put on this, it would probably encroach on this guy by about 1/2 inch. So you want to keep about 1/2 inch at least, just for safety, away from any edge, which is something I have a real problem with sometimes. And I don't know. I'm actually just searching for where I want to put my signature. Maybe I'll put it back where it was. No, it's okay. We'll just do it there. We'll just do it there underneath these little starry bits. And what color should we use? Well, it's against blue, so if I wanted it to stick out a little bit, I could pick an orange. Or I can pick a pink. I don't want to stand out too much. I think I'm going to go with kind of a Magneta and lighten it up with this little pinky tone I've got right here. Just lighten it up a touch. It's pretty neon. Probably have to calm that down a little. Let's put a little green in it. I've got this, because this is my cad yellow, but I have a little green here from the blue I was putting in it. Let's put a little bit of that green into this Magneta to calm it. I don't want this thing to cause somebody a heart attack. That's getting pretty close. Now it's going orangey. That's actually a really nice color right there. In between Magneta and orange. Pretty cool. I dig it. Alright, now I'm going to use thinner. And this is vertical, so I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try and get as much thinner into this as possible to get it inky. So I can sign with it. There we go. That's perfect right there. Now let's paint our signature in here. See if the camera can get in on that. I'm going to shift it a little bit. All right, there we are. Sign this guy. And then I think we're going to call it quits for this session. Because nothing is really jumping out at me to really change now. I just wanted you guys to see the finishing line on a piece, because I am very, very stoked to have this guy finished, and it'll be up on my website soon. Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to add a little white to this. Just wasn't liking how that was looking. See if this works better. You don't want to overly thin it because then it'll be so translucent you won't be able to see it. In fact, I'm just going to wipe off what I had there instead of going over it. It's just easier. Grab a little thinner. Just touch it. There we go. Now I just put thinner on here. That'll actually make the paint slide a little bit better too. It's a good trick. I use that sometimes. If I don't want to oil out a painting, sometimes I'll just rub a little thinner on the area and paint over it. It sounds silly, but it works when you're in a pinch. Oh, that's a lot better. I'm not talking a lot while I'm doing this because it takes a lot of concentration. If I sign my name, sure, I'm just like bloop, 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 and I got that down, but that's not how I sign paintings. I draw my signature. I do it in a kind of a different way. Now the real question is, do you put the date that you had it finished before on here or the one that you just did? Well, I do both. If it's a repaint, I'll put both dates. So usually I put the first number as the month I finished it and then the year. But on this one, we're gonna put the month, the year it was finished the first time and the year it was finished the second time. And I'll zoom in on this little signature I'm doing for you guys here in a second, because we're probably going to go off camera. We're probably almost done with this session. I will pick at this probably for the rest of the night, just here and there, just little itty bitty things that I don't want to bore you guys with on camera, but it's nothing that you would notice. Excuse me. It's nothing you would notice at all. It's all going to be little things for me that I notice. It's a great liner brush, but it's a really stiff one, so it's a little hard to actually do a signature with. I'm about to break my own rule. It's about to put my number way out too far. Might have to wipe it off and do it again. When in question, don't half-ass anything. It's a really important thing with me. I don't like half-assing things. But the only time I'll half-ass anything on a painting is if I'm really rushing to get it into a show, if it's a piece I really want in there and it happens. Alrighty, we're just gonna leave the signature with the final finishing date on it for now. Cool. Well, this has been so much fun. let's take the camera over here and we're gonna do a little bit of looky-see. And get it to focus there. Yeah, there's our little signature. And you can see the light shining off of this thing a little bit. And that's where you're seeing it. It's hard to tell. If it looks grainy, it's because you're seeing glare. And on this side of the painting, it's a little glossier than the left side, so you end up seeing a little bit more glare. All right, let's get up even closer for you guys. So you can see like how I transition from pinks down here to magnetas to very strong magneta to orange. Just trying to capture the curvature of the sky as it's wrapping around you. So I have these little subtle shifts. A lot of this stuff doesn't come off well in artificial light and on camera, but in the sun you can really see it. It's in the sun where my work really shines. A lot of people will say that too. And it looks pretty good in here in the studio. It looks fine, you know, and my new litmus test for testing anything to make sure it's done is really to look at this thing under low lighting in my studio. I shut off almost all my lights except for one light on the opposite side of the room so I can barely see in here, and see if I can read the main forms of the painting and the main part of the composition. It's just something I've done because there was a part of my career about 10, 15 years ago where I had this kind of dark, some people might call it my blue period, like a Picasso thing, but really I had this period of time where, check out those horses, you can see how striated they are, meaning, well, it's a little hard to tell. They're all, it's hard to tell, but they're all individual little, you can see it on the horse a little bit better, but those are all individual little brush strokes. And I know it looks really smooth, but there was no like funny shading tricks. It's just individual impressionistic brush strokes. I just like to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in little tiny areas, almost like cross hatching. That's how I've been getting my shading on these more colorful pieces. And that's why if you're not really super careful, you can see a little bit of those pinks alternating with those greens that I just threw in there. A little bit of highlights on some of those trees in the background. And the super thick, heavy impasto in the center. This guy's really heavy, thick too. You can see all those little strokes. You can see where I came in here, because I did this with my fingers, you know, just swirling in paint. Did that all over there. That's how I initially put this in. Then I cleaned it up a little bit with brushes. In subsequent sessions after it dried, I did some glazing to make it look a little less poppy. That background's okay. It's not my favorite part of the painting, but it's okay. You don't spend a lot of time living there anyway. Most of the focus is on these guys and the sunset. And our tree has a lot of variation in it. You can see those, this lavender going to purples, to magnetas, to reds, to oranges, yellows, white, yellow. I mean, I don't know. I think I said yellow twice. And same with these hills. I threw them in initially with my fingers. And just using my big fat fingers to rub in these clouds first. And it's funny, I did the same thing with the sky here, and it's hard, maybe hard to tell, but it's actually pretty thick. And this is after I took a razor and scraped it down. I took a knife and tried to carve it off, but it's still pretty thick through here. But I had to do something with that because I actually, I had a cloud here initially. I hated it. I wiped it out and just painted the whole sky. But then I had so much of this impasto texture left over from the session before that I basically had to do something with it. Otherwise, it just didn't look right. So I came back and reestablished those clouds. I just did it in a very different way. And it's okay. It looks a lot better than what I had there before. And then my Harley Davidson gas tank looking sunset. Look like flames on the side of a Harley, which I think it borderline looks cheeseball, but that's okay. It's I was trying to capture the flow, like the feeling of them moving, radiating out, which is funny. If you ever look at a solar flare, like from a STS satellite, look it up on YouTube. I think it's STS satellites. But if you ever look at a solar flare, it isn't too unlike what they look like, except for they would be in a black background to even give them more effect. Alrighty. So, super exciting. We're done with this guy. We have all kinds of new free time. Let's put the camera back up to work on other projects now. Just trying to get this to sit straight. All right. Just moving this guy around on you. Hope I'm not making you guys seasick. Alrighty. Well, that was just a short little fun session on how I finish a painting. And it's pretty much the same every time. Just fill out the painting until I work out all the issues, until all the problems are pretty much resolved, until I can't find a huge amount that's bugging me, and then put it away, pull it out. And if it's still in that state, if it's still where you're like, hey, that looks pretty good, I'm pretty freaking happy with that. Not completely happy. You will never be completely happy with anything you ever do in life. At least if you're as painfully a perfectionist as I am, that will never happen. So you have to know where to buy yourself your own time back. You basically have to say, I could spend another 20 hours trying to make that look better, but it probably won't make it look better. It'll probably make it look worse. Then I'll be frustrated. Then I'll hate myself and I won't paint as much. You have to get to a comfortability level with yourself and your skill set where you can just be happy, be proud, move on to the next thing. And that next thing will hopefully be so much better that when you go back and look at that other painting that you were just proud of, you're still proud of it, but you see the evolution in your new work. And that's how I feel about everything I do. Everything I do, I'm always trying to get better, even if it sometimes doesn't work out. And I have to say, this painting to me, to be completely honest, I'm very proud of, but if I were to start it over, I would have gone a different direction. And that's what the next painting's for, you know? So, I mean, this is a painting that I laid the composition out for about 4 years ago. And I had it finished, put it in a couple shows, and just felt like I sold myself short on it. And then I just felt like I really wanted to work on it again because I just loved it. And I just felt that maybe if I just had that for a couple days, and then a couple days turned into a couple weeks of working on it, because I got drastic. I could have just made some adjustments and tried to make it a little bit better, but I made it a lot better. And sometimes that takes some drastic measures. Sometimes you have to whip out, like, you just have to destroy it and rebuild it. And that's pretty much what I did. I did it carefully with this piece, but it took a lot longer than I would have liked. And in fact, I'm certain that I spent more time doing this repaint on this painting than the initial painting that I painted over, which is sad, you know, but that's partially because I put myself into that situation where I'm trying to correct something from an earlier part of my technique, and that can cause problems. I've been working on this other painting for 12 years, you'll see, and it's the painting I've been working on, second longest painting I've been working on in terms of time that I intend to finish one day. And I think artists have these projects, you know, you just have these pet projects sometimes sitting in your closet that, you know, they're just little fun things that you play with every once in a while. And they change and they evolve with you. And maybe your style's taken a drastic shift. And, you end up having to do extensive surgery on something you already did a huge amount of work on. But I'm pretty much to a point where this is one of the last ones I think I'll be doing that with for a long time. I can honestly say I have other paintings from that same time period, several in this house, are almost this size, that I would love to do that with, but it's just not worth the time. I'm not going to go back and spend 3 months repainting something that just to make it that little bit better. This got a lot bit better, but it's just not worth it. I have all kinds of surface we're going to be working on: virgin surface, tabula rasa, blank slate. We are going back to a blank slate, and we're going to be working on some fresh paintings, and that's going to be a lot more fun because my new paintings are going 20 times faster than my old paintings. I'm super excited. We're going to get really fun with it. Oh, you know, it's funny, Artist Brain, I was telling you this little anecdote about doing Fairy Worlds 2013 up in Eugene, Oregon, and I never even finished my point. Artist Brain for you. The point of that story was really that I had a lot of fun painting at that show. How I helped bring people into the booth wasn't just standing out front. I had my easel set up, and I finger painted the entire show for three days, actually 5 days, because we were there for a full day before the show and a full day after the show, doing setup and partying and doing things of that nature. But I was still set up painting at that time, so I spent like 5 days, but 3 days with a bunch of people there, and there was over 10,000 people there, and it was a great time. I had the headlining band. They were hanging out with me the entire day. They're all artists. Musicians are it's just another form of art, and half of the band were painters. They painted as much as they played music, which was a lot of fun. The name of the band is Omnia. If you're an Omnia fan, yeah, I've hung out with those guys a lot. They're really cool. World famous band, really known guys. I spent 3 days with those guys. They were trying to hide from their fans everywhere they went. They had like 50 fans literally walking behind them everywhere they went, and it was driving them crazy. So they would often like grab some food or whatever, and I'd have like 7 or 8 guys and ladies, hanging out with me, watching me finger paint, and we'd just be talking about art because they were trying to ignore their fans. It sounds sad, but I can understand, the pressure that could put on somebody. It could be annoying. Yeah, that was a fun show, and that was really my first taste of painting in public. And I got in the local paper. I did like a couple-hour interview with a reporter. He did a lot of photos. I ended up in the paper, like I said. And it was just a really great experience. And ever since that time, I've always felt like that would be something I would like to do, live painting for thousands of people. And now this is my opportunity to do it. And I felt that way for a long time. I just didn't have the bravery or the confidence, I think, to get in front of a camera. And it's still going to take a lot more time and effort. Things will always be improving as the art is improving. But yeah, this is so much fun and so exciting. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and we're going to be doing much more exciting videos in the future. I absolutely guarantee it. Once we start a painting on camera, especially live, that's what I want to do. I want to do live painting on camera from scratch. That is fun. You will see me just flailing with paint, and that's when I have my most fun. Especially the first session on any painting is just it's an art, a dance unto itself. And then after that, each session generally gets subsequently slower. One thing I've been running into lately, I brought it up earlier, but to reiterate, try not to get too tight on rendering anything at the beginning of a painting. At least for me, some artists can do that really well. I am not one of those artists. I like to render the entire image as a whole. And when I do fall into that trap and I do start rendering in little areas too soon, it throws the whole painting off for me and I get frustrated. And then I have to take that and just obliterate it. Just start over, loosen back up, and develop the painting as a whole, and then slowly render everything into detail. And this is a very detailed painting, but this is not a technical painting. This is not, yes. On my website, you'll see some of my Flemish technique. Go look at a painting called, it's a bad photograph. I have to get rephotographed. It's slightly blurry. But there's a painting on my website as an example called Apathy and Ecstasy. Kind of a complicated title. It slipped my mind for a second. It's called Apathy and Ecstasy. And that's a Flemish piece. And that's, in person, you don't see a brushstroke on that. You don't feel a brushstroke. You can't, it feels like silk. I have clients touch that painting all the time because, I mean, when a painting's in a museum or on a gallery wall, touching art is faux pas, to say the least. You don't want to touch people's art. But when you're with the artist, if they're cool with it, I love to allow people to touch my work because I think that, you know, having that physical connection with it gives you a little connection to the artist and makes it more real for you. So I really enjoy people, you know, hey, put your hands all over it. I don't care. The thing is made out of oil. The oil in your hands isn't going to do any damage, especially once it's varnished. So, you know, loosen up, have fun. And yeah, I think that's it. So if you guys have liked this, please leave your commentary. Tell me what I could be doing better or what you would like to see. And like and subscribe, please. I would love that. You know, I only have a few subscribers right now, but we're just starting out. We're building, and we're going to build fast, and we're going to be doing videos constantly. This is me going full force into doing this, and I'm not going to back up. I'm not going to get discouraged. The worst that can happen is I have fun doing this, and we all have some fun. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I hope you all have a great day or evening or whatever it may be, wherever you are. And this is Sam Foot signing out. Take care, and make a beautiful day. You have to make it. It doesn't just happen. You have to make that day.